What's up, you guys? Jalen Hawk here, as always, bringing weekly anime manga reviews, and I'm here with another video. So today we're going to be talking about Touka Kirishima. It's going to be my general analysis of Touka Kirishima as a character. I've done this a few times in the past on my older channel. I did that, I want to say, like 2 or 3 times, just like talking about different aspects of her, because there's a lot of things going into Touka as a character. If we're being realistic, she's the main female character of the Ghoul story, even though she does not play a very prominent role in the second half of part 1 or the first half of Re. She is still considered the main female character, so yeah. And I'm kind of trying to think, like, because I was sitting around, like, you know, thinking about this video, or like how exactly I wanted to take it, how I wanted to address it, because there's a lot of things about this that I do want to get into, but I don't want to kind of give off, like, in this video, that I have some type of agenda. Because one thing that I'm trying to do with these series is kind of like have people look at these characters in like a different light, and I guess get some type of respect from them, or like see them from a different point of view, and they're like, okay, I actually really do respect this character, or something on the lines of like, oh, I don't really like that character anymore because I forgot that they did this, or something like that. Whatever, just change your opinion on the character, whether it's good or bad. I hope that with this video, potentially I can change some people's mindset on Touka, because I feel like in the fandom there's a very odd, mindless hatred towards the character, and whenever I ask people, most of the time they don't even have a genuine reason why, and I'm just kind of like, look, I can understand if you don't like a character, that's fine, but like, don't try to lie to me and come up with some other BS excuse to hate the character when the actual reason why you dislike the character is probably because of like shipping or something like that, which I think is extremely fucking dumb. But I'm not going to get into that in this video, or I'm not going to like dive into the whole entire shipping aspect in this video. This video is going to be talking about the good and bad about Touka Kirishima, all the things that she's done throughout the series, pretty much a summary of her character, I guess, in a way. So yeah. So Touka Kirishima, in a lot of ways, is very similar to Kaneki, more than I feel like people actually give her credit for. And this has been stated by Ishida in Tokyo Ghoulzaki. If you have not gotten the illustration book Tokyo Ghoulzaki, I really would suggest checking it out. Actually, when it comes to Tokyo Ghoul in general, if you like Tokyo Ghoul, realistically, you should get the light novels, you should own the manga, and you should also own like the art books, because you do get to find out a lot of different things than what you might have not known before. For example, things about like Ishida's favorite characters, like in the Tokyo Ghoulzaki, he brings up the fact that Naki is one of his favorite characters. In Tokyo Ghoulzaki, he actually brings up that when he was first creating the Tokyo Ghoul story, he designed Kaneki and Touka very similar, simply because he wanted to make a character like pair. He wanted to make a, you know, some characters that actually, I guess, feed off of one another. That was the whole point of them, like, when they were first introduced. And that's why you have where Touka kind of holds the main character role almost as significantly as Kaneki in the very beginning of the story. Or at least that's my genuine consensus of why exactly that's the case. And then also in like the light novels, you find out a lot more about characters that don't necessarily get the most spotlight. For example, in the light novels, which I will cover here, obviously I'm not going to cover Tokyo Ghoul, I believe it's Days or Void, I'm not sure, where Touka and Yoriko kind of have that whole entire chapter dedicated to themselves. But in this video, I will talk about the whole entire little chapter that you get between Ayato, Touka, and Yoshimura and all of that back in Tokyo Ghoul Past, because I actually do think that's kind of important, especially when it comes to talking about Touka's relationship with her father. So yeah, I guess let's start with my feelings towards Touka in the story. So me personally, Touka's always been one of those characters for me. Like, back in part 1, she was one of my favorites. I will admit that. I feel like that's how she was for most people. Most people that I've talked to, when they talk about part 1, they do bring up that they always thought that Touka was really cool. And she tends to rank usually on people's top 5s or top 3s. Sometimes even some people's favorite character. But as the series, you know, went on, people kind of weren't as hyped about Touka, simply because she did not appear in the story as much. She didn't get as many fights. Her main character role was definitely diminished quite a bit throughout the course of Tokyo Ghoul part 1, definitely. And even into Re, it's kind of even lower, though she does do some very significant things throughout the story of part 1, or part 2, that people, I really feel like, do not give her credit for. But Touka, for me, throughout the course of Re, and after Re has been done, I'm probably going to make an updated version of my favorite characters list. I don't necessarily know if she would be on my top 10, but she's always been the character for me personally who has always tiered on either being my 10th spot or my 11th spot. She's definitely a character that I really do like, but a character that I do not like enough, or not like as much as other characters who have done either more significant things in the story, or I just am just like a fan for. Like in the case of like Akira, I like Akira more than I like Touka, just because I think Akira is a lot cooler. I like her character arc a lot more than I like Touka's, but I still do enjoy Touka's character arc. And Touka's character arc and Akira's character arc kind of play into one another, so it's kind of funny from that aspect. But besides that, Touka, just like Kaneki and just like a lot of several other people throughout the Tokyo Ghoul story, is a very tragic character. Like, I would argue and say that Touka is one of the most developed characters throughout the course of Tokyo Ghoul Part 1. Part 2, you kind of get to see the outcome of her development, and that's why I feel like a lot of people don't really seem to understand like why Touka does not act the same in Part 2 as she does in Part 1, because in Part 2, she's a lot more sympathetic, she's a lot more caring, she's a lot more calm, and I guess you can kind of say that she mellowed down quite a bit. She matured quite a bit as a person, mentally and physically. So, yeah. But in Part 1, Touka was a lot more brash, she was a lot more hot-headed, and you see her kind of get into arguments with several other characters throughout the story, like Yomo, like Kaneki, like Yoshimura, mainly the male figures in her life. And I think this is simply because of the fact that she kind of lacked that male upbringing in her life, and that could be the reason why that maybe she lashes out towards them. Because if you read Tokyo Ghoul Past, and you find out, a little bit more details of Touka's past prior to her becoming, prior to, like, around the time that she did enjoy on Teiku, you have where, like, Touka's mentality then is kind of the same as it was in the beginning of the series, when you kind of see the soft aspect of Touka, which is something that I feel like a lot of people miss. They usually just look at the hot-sided part of her, where like she would try to fight someone like Kaneki, like when she would attack Mado recklessly, or a Tsukiyama, etc. No, Touka actually does have a very soft side to her, and it kind of plays along the whole entire the subplot going on with her, the whole entire beauty aspect of Touka, which I'll get into that a little bit later on in the video. But going back to Tokyo Ghoul Past, when Touka was young, obviously, we know that, I believe when she was about like 8 to 10 years old, something around there, you have where, obviously humans betrayed them. Her mom died when she was young because of the hands of Arima. She was, killed at some point. We don't know the full details of that story, but obviously we know that led into Yomo wanting to hunt down Arima and fight him, and then apparently Uta at some point off-screen fought Arima and lost, which I still want to see that at some point. That would be really cool. And you have where, like, her father ended up cannibalizing and ended up developing, his Kakuja, getting the epitaph of the gravedigger Arata, and went on to fight CCG and was taken down by the hands of, like, Mado, Shinohara, and I believe Kuro Iwa. Kuro Iwa, the one that got stabbed in the neck and somehow lived. That guy. So, during the events of Tokyo Ghoul Past, though, it's obviously like a time skip. Touka at this time, I believe, is about 15 or 16 years old, I believe. And because Ayato is 14. So, no, wait. No, I take that back, because Touka was 2 years younger than Kaneki. Kaneki, by the beginning of Part 1, was 19 years old. Okay, she was some point in her teens. It was prior to Kaneki, her meeting Kaneki, alright? I forgot the exact age. She might have been 14 years old now, I actually think about it. But, you have where Touka, during this time, has a different mentality. You have, she's very calm, but you do see that, like, thug, like, aspect to her, like the street punk type aspect to her that Ayato kind of talks about back in Re. The fact that Touka was able to kind of, like, know that weird, like, gibberish language that the underground lollies, the people from the 24th Ward, were able to speak, and she was able to, like, translate it. It's, like, around that time. And you have where Touka, she's, like, wandering the streets like any other, ghoul around her age, and, hunting, taking care of her younger brother, and you have where you find out that she's constantly thinking about her father. And, you know, eventually this plays into, like, a whole entire plot about, like, this kid who she ends up watching for, like, a little bit. And, like, I'm not going to get into the details of it because I don't want to necessarily spoil you. But the outcome of the whole entire, like, story is that we find out how exactly Touka ended up going into high school. You have where Yoshimura was the one who suggested it to her, but the only reason why she decided to go wasn't because of the words of Yoshimura, like how the manga or the anime kind of imply. It was more on the lines of she wanted to know the world that her father always believed in, the world where he always was very kind to humans and he always trusted humans. She wanted to know what exactly is so special about people that her father cared about them so much, and that's why she went into high school and she ended up meeting like people like Yoriko in her life, who's her best friend. And one thing that I feel like a lot of people don't seem to understand about the relationship between Touka and Yoriko is Yoriko to Touka is just as important as Hide is to Kaneki. Obviously, some people were really upset at the fact that Touka did not go out her way to go check on Yoriko, especially when she found out that it could be possible that Mutsuki might have harmed her, or the fact that CCG might be wanting to execute her. But that was simply because of, you know, Touka's calm mindset at this point in time, by that point of Tokyo Ghoul Re. And also the fact that if you look, we have the whole entire wedding scene with Takeyomi and Yoriko, and you have where we see Touka and Kaneki watching over them, and she's kind of like, oh, okay, well, she's safe. So clearly Touka does care about her. It's just that in her position at the time, she didn't want to do something that can cause the entire, like, her entire group, you know, GOAT, to be jeopardized. So yeah. Now Touka's development throughout part 1 and part 2, I do think is actually really good, because one thing about Touka that I always feel like, I feel like I keep on saying this a lot throughout the video, and people are probably gonna get annoyed that I keep saying this, but there's, like, I'm just gonna say it right now, there's a lot of aspects of Touka's character that I feel like people really do miss. People only think about the shipping crap when it comes to Touka, which is really a tiny aspect of her character development, but it is something that does play in part with her character development, and I will explain a little bit later why that is indeed important. But Touka as a character is extremely insecure, to the point where it's really sad. Now, obviously, her insecurities are a lot more justified in comparison to, like, you know, a lot of the insecurities that people have in our day and age, like in, you know, IRL. But you have where she's insecure about many things, like her looks. You have where the beauty aspect to her character does play a giant role. The fact that you have where the world as a whole about Touka, and this is something that I've even incorporated to a degree in my own fan fiction that I wrote about Tokyo Ghoul. But you have where the world labels ghouls as monsters, and you have where a lot of people in the series kind of take these acts and these titles and just play off of it, where Touka kind of ends up developing the mentality where she's kind of like, well, the world looks at ghouls like monsters, so I must actually be one. And you have where someone like Furuta is kind of like, well, I mean, in order to create peace, I have to take on this role as like a mass murderer, so ghouls and humans have something, you know, big to fight against, which ended up being Dragon, and it essentially kind of ended up creating peace in a real fucked up way. And you even have where, like, the clowns as a whole were kind of like, okay, we take the roles of fools in order to kind of, like, not lose sanity. So, like, people throughout Tokyo Ghoul constantly, you know, put roles on themselves, and Touka's no different. You have where she puts the role of her being a monster on herself, and it's not necessarily that she kind of acts as such, it's more like on the lines of a psychological aspect where she actually does believe that she is one. And this is why whenever characters throughout the story end up calling Touka beautiful, either she's very reluctant to kind of believe that, or she has a very hard time kind of accepting that aspect to herself. Because in reality, like, if we're talking about, I guess beauty as a whole is kind of subjective, but in my personal opinion, and I think most people will agree, Touka is a pretty attractive individual. And even the way how she presents herself is very beautiful. She's kind to people. She's not a mean person in general. Obviously, she does have her moments, like with Kaneki, where she wasn't necessarily very fond of him, but that was more on the lines of Kaneki's situation being very weird. The fact that Touka, for the first time of her life, actually has to deal with teaching someone how to be a ghoul. Not to mention Touka as a whole being a quote-unquote teacher or a caregiver isn't necessarily something that she's super proud of. Because if you look at her relationship with Ayato and also the relationship that she has with Hinami, you have where constantly she's kind of comparing Hinami the way how she treats her towards the way how she treats Ayato, and it's kind of sad because you have where Ayato, despite all the things that Touka did for him, ended up leaving and kind of disappearing from her life and treating her kind of like crap. You see this throughout Touka Ghoul past. Like, Touka will say very simple things like, oh, Ayato, I am going to go to Anteku. Do you want something? I can bring something back for you if you want anything. And Ayato will just be like, dude, get the hell out. You need to tell me where the hell you're going all the time. You're annoying. Like, get out of my face. Like, you know, that edgy, angsty teen crap. But you have where someone like Hinami, very kind towards Touka, very passive, a very genuinely good person, I guess, if you can really call a ghoul. Like, because I guess the term of good person in general is very subjective, because people, and even ghouls as well, have kind of their light and dark aspects to them. But genuinely, I think most people would consider Hinami a very good person. She's not really a mass murderer, or she won't take the lives of someone who is innocent or anything like that. So, yeah, but you have where, when Hinami finally runs away, it's kind of like, the whole entire Hinami arc, as it's going on, is almost like a repetitive aspect of Touka's own life. You have where Hinami's mom was killed right in front of her, and she was unable to do anything about it. Touka, same, or she obviously didn't witness her mom dying right in front of her, but her mother was killed when she was very young, and you also have where her father, seemingly from her point of view, was indeed killed as well by CCG, and she was forced to kind of be in a state where she had to take care of her younger brother. Hinami, it's kind of the same thing. She was unable to do anything to prevent Hinami's mom from being killed, and you have where now she's being forced to take care of Hinami, but Hinami ends up running away to go back to where her mom was, and from Touka's point of view, it's kind of like, not only am I angry at CCG at the fact that this is almost like the same exact thing that happened to me is happening to someone I really do care about, it's also, I have to kind of relive my past experiences through Hinami, and I'm going to lose someone that I consider a younger sibling figure again, and I don't understand why. And that's why you have where whenever Touka is in a situation where she doesn't understand what's going on, she can't comprehend with it, she acts rashly, and she acts very, I guess, angry. And it's kind of one thing about Touka that I feel like is really tragic, and something that I feel like a lot of people have a hard time sympathizing with. Hopefully, after hearing what I have to say, you might sympathize with her a lot more. Now, another thing about Touka that I do want to bring up is that the Kirishima bloodline as a whole, it seems like that they kind of go through an aspect in their life where they're very angsty and angry, and then eventually they mellow down. You see this with Hikari, according to Yomo. Hikari back in the day used to be like a freaking ghoul that would go around like causing hella havoc, and then eventually she mellowed down when she met Arata and had a kid. In the case with Arata, or not in Arata, in the case with Yomo, you have where Yomo kind of was like going through the whole entire angsty aspect of his life because he wanted to avenge his sister, and you also have where he was, you know, trying to fight Arima and all that stuff. But once he saw Touka and Ayato once again, you know, back on Anteku, and they're like, you know, younger, you have where Uta kind of brings up that he feels like that they changed him and that he became a lot nicer. Same thing we see with Touka and even Ayato. Once he kind of encountered Hinami and was tasked by his sister to kind of take care of her while she was part of Aogiri, he mellowed out as well. So don't be surprised if we even, like, theoretically, if this did happen. I don't think it's going to, but if it did happen, and you have where there was another series focused about Kaneki's kid, don't be surprised if Kaneki's kid happens to go through the same exact transition as all the other people in her family before her. So yeah. So I guess let's talk about Tokyo Ghoul Re. Tokyo Ghoul Re, Touka's role here isn't necessarily as big. At least she doesn't have as many big moments in the series in comparison to other people, but there is definitely two things in the series that Touka does do when it comes to Tokyo Ghoul Re that I feel like a lot of people do not give her credit for when it's actually very due. Touka, just like several other people in the story, actually is one of the main reasons why the coexistence aspect of the story even ended up happening within Japan or Tokyo as a whole. You have where she gives that whole entire speech to Amon and also to Akira, where you have where Amon's kind of just like, you know, I forgive you for what you did to, you know, my mentor, you know, Mado, my partner, but I don't understand that even though everything that has happened, despite the way how the world is, and I am one of the reasons that is causing the world to kind of be the way how it is, Why is it that, you know, Kaneki sides with the ghouls, but even though I'm a half ghoul, I side with the humans? Like, why is that? You even have where, like, for example, during the Akira flashback, or not flashback, the Akira, Touka, and Hinami speech, yeah, where, you know, Touka kind of just explains everything to Akira. She's like, look, this is what happened. You don't need to blame Hinami really for anything, because I'm the one who killed your father. So if you have to bear any hatred towards anyone, it's me. And you even have where she kind of introduces the kids back to Akira, and because of that, you have where pretty much Akira kind of realizes that, like, you know, ghouls and humans really aren't that different from one another. And realistically, why, like you've read it, I don't really need to explain it. But pretty much what I'm trying to say is the fact that Touka was able to kind of change the mentality of someone who was raised their entire life to hate ghouls is crazy to me. Like, obviously she wasn't able to full-fledged, like, change Akira, but she did put her in a state where she was questioning her own morals, and it was kind of almost last minute, like, the last things that he said to her kind of ended up causing her to kind of change her mentality and just realize the world is really fucked up. Like, it's not as black and white as it seemed to be. Ghouls, not all ghouls are bad people. Not all humans are bad or are good people. There's a mixture of both, and the world is just straight up gray. And that's where you have where both Akira and Amon were kind of left in this state of emptiness, because everything that they believed in before this has now been shattered by the hands of Touka, simply telling them the way how the world actually truly is, and showing them a different aspect of the life that they did not know about. Another thing that I feel like a lot of people don't give Touka for, which I think is really kind of, I genuinely don't understand why. Like, okay, I need to collect myself for this. Okay, so I don't understand why, but a lot of people need to realize if it wasn't for Touka, Dragon, Kaneki would have not been freed from Dragon. Like, even though Touka was not, like, the last person to kind of dig Kaneki out, it was obviously Urei's assistance as well. You have where Touka was the one who tracked Kaneki down. She was the one, like, or actually, I don't think it was her who came up with the ideas of, like, the scan, like, the freaking scanner things. I think that might have been, that was either Tsukiyama or Hide. I can't remember exactly who, but Touka was the one who remembered, actually, no, I think it might have been Touka. I think Touka was the one who came up with the idea, because Kaneki was wearing the ring on, you know, his neck, you know, the necklace ring thing that belonged to, I'm not sure which one of her parents it was, but it was one of her parents. It was either Aruto or Hikari, and she was the one who found Kaneki. She dug him up with her Kagune. Despite this entire time, she's also pregnant, and she freaking saves his ass. Like, she went in to save her husband, and she freaking accomplished that. So props to Touka. People were kind of saying stuff like, look, Touka needs to do more, she hasn't done enough, blah, blah, blah. Now, I will admit, I do think that there were rooms of character development you could have used for Touka. For example, if you brought back Aruto, because Aruto's still alive. He might be in a state of being, like, well, okay, not necessarily brain dead, but, like, not all the way there. Like, his mentality might be completely gone, but his brain still works. Kind of similar to what is going on with Yoshimura, but you could have done something like that where Touka and Ayato have to confront their own father and kind of finally put down to the grave, like, this part of my life is gone, I have to push it past me, and they have to do that by fighting and possibly also taking the life of their dad. They could have easily done that, and I think that would have been really cool, and I think a lot of people would like that, but obviously that didn't happen. But one aspect of Touka that I feel like a lot of people didn't like, though, is the housewife aspect. The fact that it almost seemed like that Ishida re-brought Touka in to be Kaneki's lover and kind of be the benefactor for Kaneki, in the person that he ends up with by the very end of the story. You know, they get married, they have sex, well, they have sex, then they get married, and then they obviously have a kid together, whatever the kid's name is, whatever you want to call her, Maya, freaking P-chan, Pleasure Kaneki, whatever, their child, and I think this is a genuinely good aspect of Touka that was inevitable, that was going to happen. Now, I'm not trying to sound like I'm sexist or anything like that, because that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that Touka, her whole entire aspect to her character and what her Kaneki's aspect was to his character, they're supposed to parallel each other, and they're going two different paths. Kaneki enters the world, you know, as a human, obviously, and then ends up becoming an artificial ghoul, a half ghoul. Touka is, steps into the world obviously as a ghoul, and it has to slowly become human, not literally, but it has to act human, adapt to people around her, and you see them kind of going like two separate paths. And that's why by the end of Tokyo, or like the end of Tokyo Ghoul Part 1, Touka and Kaneki are at two different spots. They're at the opposite spots from one another where they first started. Kaneki, as the series progressed, became more and more like a ghoul and kind of adapting the whole entire mindset. Well, not the mindset, but kind of like the stereotypical mentality that CCG has given to all ghouls, the fact that they're monsters. That's the way how Kaneki ended up becoming by the end of Tokyo Ghoul Part 1. And Touka, by the end of Tokyo Ghoul, she ends up becoming more and more human than Kaneki was by the end of the story. And this is why in Tokyo Ghoul Part 2, the reason why Touka isn't really doing anything is because she's living her own human life. Her accepting Kaneki and marrying him and also having a child with him is kind of the last aspects of Touka's character where it's like, this is my life, I've changed, and I've made my life better for myself than what it actually was. So, yeah. That's kind of all I have for this video. I don't want to drag this video on too long because realistically, I can probably make it an hour-long discussion talking about fucking Touka. But I'm not going to do that. Let's kind of keep it to, looks like it's about 26 minutes right now. And yeah, so I think I covered everything I need to. Obviously, if you guys want a video of me talking about, like, how strong Touka is, I can make a separate video talking about that because I feel like Touka is underrated when it comes to that category too. But besides that, I think I covered everything. Next time, I don't know, because next week I finish up school, so I'll have a lot more time to make videos. So next week, I'll let you guys decide in the comment section down below which video would you guys rather like to see between Hinami, Akira, and Amon. I'm kind of deciding between these three. I'm more leaning towards Akira and Amon, or Akira over Amon, but I don't really know. So, because that's kind of actually no, because I'm thinking about it now. I'll probably do Amon next, right? I'll do Amon next, then I'll do Akira, and then Arima, and then I'll do Eto, and then, Hinami, and then the Quinks, when it comes to, like, because I'm trying to, like, do this based off of, like, the importance that people are to Kaneki, and kind of, like, keeping them as kind of, like, a duo type thing, because, like, obviously Akira, Eto, and Arima are kind of, like, the parental, mentor figures for Kaneki. I was trying to think of the word. And then you have her, like, Amon is kind of like, not necessarily like the rival to Kaneki, but someone who's very similar and has a very similar mindset to him. Sort of on the opposite spectrum, though. And then obviously, like, Hinami, along with, like, Psycho, are more on the lines of, like, a little sibling-esque figure to Kaneki. And the Quinks, I haven't decided if I'm going to do separate videos on the Quinks, because I feel like I might just I'll do, like, the main brunt of them. Like, I'll do, like, Psycho and Shirazu probably as, like, one thing, along with the Zero Squad, like Hirako and Yusa, and I might make separate videos talking about Urei and Mutsuki individually, because they have enough aspect on their own plate to kind of make a separate video on them, but I haven't really decided yet. You guys just tell me down below. Like, whatever video you guys want, just comment down below. If you guys scroll down and see, like, oh yeah, this is a video suggestion, press the like button on that, so the more upvotes, I'll probably actually see it, and I'll be more likely to actually choose that one. But next, I'm thinking Akira. So, yeah. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Remember, comment, subscribe as always. I love you all. Jalen Hawk, as always, signing out. See you guys.